Greetings everyone. Welcome to the lecture on Indian sculptures, a rhythmic journey through time and space. Pallava art and architecture represent an early stage of Dravidian art and architecture which blossomed to its fullest extent under the Chola dynasty. The first stone and mortar temples of South India were constructed during Pallava rule and were based on earlier brick and timber prototypes. Pallava sculptors later adapted to free-standing structural shrines which inspired later on several of Chola temples. Some of the best examples of Pallava art that can be described are the Kailash Nath temple at Kanchipuram, the Shore temple and the Panch Rathas of Mahabalipuram. A very famous sculptor of Pallava period was Akshara. Among the Pallava period bronzes of the 8th century is the icon of Shiva seated in Ardha Paranyaka Asan, that is, one leg kept dangling. The right hand is in the Achamana Mudra gesture, suggesting that he is about to drink poison. The well-known dancing figure of Shiva as Nataraja was evolved and fully developed during the Chola period, and since then many variations of this complex bronze image have been modelled. So the point I am trying to make here is that while we identify Nataraja with Chola period, there were some very important developments that had taken place during Pallava iconography, and the way Shiva was being depicted in Pallava bronzes definitely had an influence on later day images that came to be made during Cholas. So as you can see, one of this example that is being shared with you is that of Pallava period Shiva image. One of the great bronze sculptures of the Pallava period is the 8th century icon of Shiva seated in Ardha Paranyaka Asan, and in this the story that goes is that the other hand is about to drink poison. Then another kind of depiction is that of Shiva as Chandra Shekhara, where there is a moon which is held in the hair. Here again this visual which is being shared on the screen captures this image of Shiva. Then another interesting example is that of Shiva as the cosmic dancer. So this again can be considered as a precursor of later day Nataraja, which finally evolved as a classical form during Chola period. So as you can see, one of the leg is rising high, is kept loosely, and the same kind of depiction later on appears in Nataraja images. So what we can definitely say is that origin of the Nataraja cult can be seen in Pallava period itself. These images also help us in exploring the origins of Nataraja cult in the state of Tamil Nadu in southern India. The trajectory of the dancing Shiva is traced from the processional worship of metal icons outside the sanctum to the cultic elevation of the Nataraja bronze into the sanctum at Chidambaram. So this was definitely a long drawn out process which did not happen overnight. One can say that archaeo-metallurgical, iconographic and several literary evidences point out that the Nataraja bronze depicting Shiva's Ananda Tandava or the dance of bliss was something that was evolutionary. It was a Pallava innovation which can be dated to from 7th to mid 9th century rather than 10th century Cholas, as is widely believed. So the cosmic or metaphysical connotations is also argued on the basis of the testimony of several hymns of Tamil saints. A wide range of Shiva iconography evolved in the Thanjavur region of Tamil Nadu. The 9th century Kalyana Sundara Murti is highly remarkable for the manner in which Pani Grahan or ceremony of marriage is represented by two separate statues. Shiva with his extended right hand accepts Parvati's right hand, who is depicted with a bashful expression and also shown as taking a step forward. As you can see in this beautiful depiction of Kalyana Sundara Murti, where the bride Parvati is offering her right hand to Shiva. So we can talk about the union of Shiva and Parvati as a very ingenious kind of a representation in the Ardhanarishwara Murti, also in a single image. So beautiful independent figurines of Parvati have also been modelled, standing in graceful Tribhanga posture, where you don't see a straight kind of a standing line, the body in a straight kind of a standing line, but in a Tribhanga position, which is also one of the dancing poses. Now during the 16th century, known as the Vijayanagar period in Andhra Pradesh, the sculptors experimented with portrait sculpture in order to preserve knowledge about the royal patron for posterity. At Tirupati, the life-size standing portrait statues were cast in bronze depicting Krishna Dev Raya with two of his queens, Tirumalamba and Chinna Devi. The sculptor has combined the facial features with certain elements of idealization, and also there is an attempt to make the physical body appear graceful. So the standing king and queens are depicted in a praying posture and both the hands being folded in Namaskar Mudra. As you can see in this visual, this is the visual of Krishna Dev Raya with his two queens, all of them in Namaskar Mudra. Now we also come across a lot of regional experimentation that was going on as far as metal iconography is concerned. So after discussing about Pallavas and also talking about Vijayanagar Empire, now we can also talk about areas in Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, because they also produced bronze images of Buddhist deities as well as Hindu gods and goddesses. Most of these were created during the 8th, 9th and 10th centuries, and they also had a very distinct style in comparison with bronze images from other parts of India. So what we see is that while the medium is the same, it is bronze, whether it is under Cholas or it is in Vijayanagar or it is in Himachal Pradesh, but the kind of rendering of the images and the kind of features that emerge from these different images appear to be quite different. So a noteworthy development was the growth of different types of iconography of Vishnu images. The four-headed Vishnu, also known as Chaturnana or Vaikuntha Vishnu, was worshipped in these regions. While the central face represents Vasudev, the other two faces were that of Narsimha and Varaha. As you can see in this example of Chaturmukhi Vaikuntha, where only the frontal face was that of Vasudeva, but rest were the other avatars of Vishnu that were made. Then another example is that of Chaturnana belonging to Himachal Pradesh. Here again you can see different heads of Vishnu indicating his different avatars in a single deity, in a single image. Again, you can see how different this kind of iconography is if you compare it to Pallava bronzes. Now coming to Bengal and Bihar, here where the Pala dynasty was flourishing. So in Buddhist centers like Nalanda, a school of bronze casting emerged around 9th century during the rule of Pala dynasty, and in the gap of a few centuries, the sculptors at Kurkihar near Nalanda were able to revive the classical style of the Gupta period. A remarkable bronze was that of Avalokiteshvara, which was a four-armed. So we were talking about the four-armed Avalokiteshvara, which is definitely an excellent example of a male figure in graceful Tribhanga posture. So we usually come across Tribhanga posture as far as the female images are concerned. So worship of female goddesses was adopted, which is also part of the growth of the Vajrayana phase in Buddhism. As you can see, this image of Avalokiteshvara belonging to Palas. Not to miss the graceful posture and finesse in this image. Then images of Tara also became very popular during this period and in this region. Seated on a throne, she is accompanied by a growing curvilinear lotus stalk, and her right hand is shown in Abhay Mudra. The bronze casting technique and making of bronze images of traditional icons reached a high stage of development in South India during the medieval period. As you can see in this image of Tara, the features that I have just described are visible in this image. Although bronze iconography was modeled and cast during the Pallava period, during the 8th and 9th centuries, some of the most beautiful and exquisite statues came to be produced during the Chola period in Tamil Nadu from 10th to 12th century. The technique and art of fashioning bronze images is still skillfully practiced in South India, especially in areas like Kumbakonam. And the most popular image that emerged was that of Chol Nataraja. Shiva is associated with the end of the cosmic world, and it is with this aspect that the dancing position of Shiva is associated. So in this, during the Chola period, bronze sculpture and especially in Nataraja sculptures, Shiva is shown balancing himself on his right leg and suppressing the apasmara, that is the demon of ignorance and evil, with the foot of the same leg. And at the same time, in this particular posture, he raises his left leg in Bhujangastra stance, which represents Tirobhav, that is kicking away the veil of Maya or illusion from the mind of the devotees. Now, his forearms are outstretched and the main right hand is posed in Abhay Hasta or the gesture. Then the upper right hand held the damru, which was his favorite musical instrument, to keep on the tal or the beat going. Then the upper left hand carried a flame, while the main left hand is held in Dola Hasta and connects with the Abhay Hasta of the right hand. His hair locks fly on both the sides, touching the circular Jwala Mala or the garland of flames which surrounds the entire dancing figuration. So this kind of depiction was made time and again in innumerable Nataraja images. So the Kalyana Sundara Murti, which is depicting the wedding of Shiva and Parvati, from Vadadalur is another example of Chola bronze art. During the Chola period, a large number of temples of stone were transformed into grand and complex buildings, as can be seen from the temples at Thanjavur or Gangaikonda Cholapuram, and also the huge gopurams of Chidambaram. So, in this depiction of Chola Kalyana Sundara Murti, you can see, and you can very well compare it also to the earlier Kalyana Sundar Murti that I had shared, which showed the union between Shiva and Parvati belonging to Pallava period. Then another highlight of the Chola period was that religion was now becoming more and more complex. So elaborate rituals were appearing, which was giving way to elaborate festivals with music, dance and processions. So the bronze images were intended as manifestations of the main deity that was enshrined in the Garbhagriha, and when taken out in procession, they were worshipped with adoration. So, with this kind of necessity now, many more images in perfect form had to be made. Now, if we talk about the evolution of bronze sculptures during Chola period, here also we can identify distinct phases. So, one can talk about the first phase up to the first half of the 10th century CE, which was named after Aditya Chola. Then the second phase, which was for the last quarter of 10th century, which was named after Sembian Mahadevi. And the third phase named after Rajaraja I, ranging to around 11th century CE, and the fourth phase 12th century, which is also known as the phase of later Cholas. So we see that it was during the 10th and the 11th centuries that the epitome of artistic excellence was achieved. And great emphasis was placed on graceful depiction, expressions, bhavas, then flowing lines, and also contouring. The contouring of body was very important. And here again you can compare this development with the earlier images of Pallava period. It may be noted that dance forms and poses also now came to influence the different images that were being made. So the Agamic and Vastu literature also became a source of inspiration for the creation of so many images. Some of the more popular icons that were created by the sculptors are the Kalyana Sundara Murti of Shiva and Parvati, who are also seen in the Somaskanda depiction. Then Shiva as Ardhanarishwar, Nataraj, and also Vrishabhavana Murti as well in Sukhasan. These were some very popular subjects, and several such idols have been discovered. Then some portrait sculpture of saints such as Manikavachar and the royal patrons such as Rajendra Chola and Sembian Mahadevi also exist for this period. Besides Hindu icons, Buddhist and Jain images were also cast in bronze during this period. So the Chola bronze tradition continued to inspire artists well into the medieval period, as is also attested by Vijayanagar bronzes that were just shared with you. A very important quality of Chola bronzes that one can highlight is their exquisite appeal. And though they were modelled and cast during the Pallava period from 8th century onwards, however, we see that some of the finest and most beautiful statues were definitely produced during the Chola period in Tamil Nadu from 10th to 12th CE. The technique of art fashioning bronze images is still skillfully being practiced in South India, especially in areas around Kumbakonam. And the distinguished patron during the 10th century was the widowed Chola queen Sembian Mahadevi. In fact, she contributed a lot in development of several of the sculptural forms. So Chola bronze images are the most sought after collector's items in contemporary times, and the well known dancing figure of Shiva as Nataraja, which evolved and fully developed, though it evolved during Pallava period, but it fully developed during the Chola period. And since then, many variations of this complex bronze image have been modeled. A wide range of Shiva iconography evolved in the Tanjore region of Tamil Nadu, and here again we see the beginnings had been made from Pallava period onwards. Clear demarcation of the areas of the body, angles in the body, then creases between the torso and the stomach, around the navel, sharp edges, a pointed nose, facial expressions. These are some of the most important features of Chola iconography, and they are clearly visible in Nataraja image also. As you can see in this visual, not to miss the sharpness of features and the angles that kind of differentiate different body parts. Shiva is associated not only, however, with Nataraja as we have seen, but a number of other depictions also that have been shared. Now this is another visual, as you can see in the image. After Nataraja, the next most popular image was a Soma Skanda, where Shiva is depicted sitting with his consort Uma and his son Skanda, dancing between them on a platform. Other images of Shiva highlight some aspects of his personality, like Chandrasekhara, which highlights the moon on his head, and Gangadhara, that is the Ganga coming out of his hair. Ardhanarishwar with half Shiva and half Shakti is another popular image where one can see the master craftsmanship when the limbs of the two parts are carved accordingly. The female part being smaller and also delicate. Parvati is also carved in her various avatars like Maheshwari, Durga, Kali, etc. And her most popular avatar remained Mahishasura, the one who slays the demon Mahisha. Then Ganesh, Murugan and Nandi completed the Shiva family. Ganesha is depicted with a very long upper body and short legs. Vishnu in his Varaha avatar with a Devi on his lap as he stands on a raised leg. There is also a huge image of Sudarshan Chakra. Most idols that stood mounted on the solid metal pedestal that had solid hooks as if to pull the idols using ropes or to tie them up with something, which again proves that these images were regularly being taken out for procession, for ceremonial purposes. As you can see in this image, there is lot of fine iconography that has emerged, and the transition is clearly visible as compared to preceding 2 to 3 centuries. Another interesting feature that appeared was that the general height of the women shown was subsequently substantially less than men in most of these bronzes, and also they were shown in a very delicate and slender manner. The noses were very sharp and the head ornamentation, even in a small image, was quite elaborate. Both the sexes were depicted without any upper body garment. The lower garments had a bit of experimentation, and the emphasis was on achieving a harmony and rhythm and in proportionately carved figures. Thank you.